Welcome to the cart tutorial section 3. Let's do some refactoring for the counter. I know a lot of people don't like the way I set this up, so when it runs it builds out the counter. Let's just not make the processor work any more than it needs to, and let's just go ahead and have that prepared so it doesn't have to do that. It's the same exact thing, I'm just not generating. I'm actually statically typing in the numbers. Just less work for the processor. Let's go ahead and offset our timestamp. Based on where you are in the world, we're going to need to offset it. Since this comes out as Greenwich Mean Time, if you're either plus or minus so many hours. I just happen to be 6 hours off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it know that our number is going to be multiplied by 6,000 for our offset. This is the easiest way to break out the format that I want without using Moment.js. I just don't want to plug in something that I can technically do with just a few lines of code. And there we go. We're going to fire into our offset from date now, and it'll come out correctly. And if you want to see the Stack Overflow, the link's above, right here on the code, right above the actual code I wrote. And I'm just going to cut out milliseconds because I don't really want to break it down that far. And here we are. There's my timestamp coming up there. Let's build the show alert function. Okay, so show alert is going to be a hook. Alert's basically going to be passed on as a message. Let's go ahead and use state as default being the message when we do not have an actual alert being shown. Now alert type is going to be based on the Bootstrap color coding. If you're not familiar, you'll have things like danger, warning, primary, secondary, and info. Those all represent a different color. So we'll be using those for our alert info boxes. And here I'm going to build out our show alert function. It's going to be expecting message and message type. And of course we're going to have to do a set timeout for 3 seconds, and then once 3 seconds has passed we'll set it back to default. And you'll see in our ternary operator down below, default is the determining factor whether we do or do not show our alert. Now we're going to put our alert outside the container, which means we're going to need to build a React fragment because we have multiple divs represented here. And we'll be passing this down to all the modules. So let's go ahead and determine our ternary operator. And if alert does not equal default, we'll show our alert box. Here's our classes. And this alert dash with a variable will determine the color code based on Bootstrap. Animated is going to be a CSS library we'll bring in a second. Fade in, down is an animation included in that library. Alert will be the message shown. Now, let's import the animated CSS, and you'll be able to get this from my GitHub repository. I'm going to put it in the source file, in the source folder of this project in client. As you can see, go to client, source, paste, animate is right there. Let's pass this function down to cart module. And when cart is successful, we're going to pass props to cart. Once this is successful, we're going to show alert, and it's going to pass through our message, and next it will pass through the alert type based on the Bootstrap color coding system. Here's the color coding system. As you can see, we've got primary, secondary, success, danger. It also does the same thing with buttons. It does the same thing with text. So these are keywords in color coding throughout Bootstrap we're going to be using. And as you can see, I'm going to make a purchase, and I'll hit submit cart, and as you can see, there it says that we were successful. Now let's do a little bit of tweaking. I had the fade in spelled wrong. I needed to capitalize an I. Let's try it one more time. Submit cart. Purchase submitted. And after 3 seconds, it goes away. Let's build the nav bar. We will be using hooks, and the hook is going to be called active module. These modules will be selected in the nav bar. Whichever one is active will become the active module, hence will show us which module will be showing in our app. Hooks is something I like to use here as opposed to using the router. Reason being is sometimes I want to show multiple combinations of different modules. Now, if you wanted to do some kind of browser work, you can also use parameters because I'm not using the router. So JavaScript could pick up parameters in the URL if you'd like to do that. So as you can see, the active module equals cart. I show the cart module. If it equals log, I show the purchase log. So let's bring in the nav and build the nav bar. There's a new module. And it's going to be using hooks as well. And we're going to have to bring in some props. And we will definitely have to build out the nav bar in JSX. And I'm going to be using a standard Bootstrap nav. So if you're not familiar with it, always go to the documentation to see some details of what they can offer. I do not use the Bootstrap built-in JavaScript. I'm going to be using my own, so I don't have to plug in jQuery or anything that they have. I can utilize it on my own. I don't need their JavaScript from Bootstrap. These are all pre-existing classes Bootstrap offers for their nav bars. And we can go ahead and put the logo option here that Bootstrap offers. Typically the name of your company or your application would go here. Now we're going to do our collapsible button. This is going to come in handy when we're using mobile devices. We'll be able to toggle our nav menu. And here's the icon Bootstrap offers for the nav bar toggle button. And let's go ahead and plug our module nav into the app. We'll put it above the alert. And we'll pass set active module here, so we'll be able to utilize the function within nav. And let's make sure we export correctly. Now it looks like our nav is up. and we'll be determining whether it's a mobile nav or not, and whether it toggles or not based on this hook here. And let's go ahead and build out the substitute from what Bootstrap had written, and I'll write something much, much smaller. This will pass what section is active based on the user's clicking of the nav bar. We'll also be setting this in local storage, so if they want to refresh their page, it will still remember what section. And this is how we're going to determine whether or not we will be utilizing the mobile menu based on the device width. All right, let's build out this menu. And if it's mobile nav, we will determine whether we hide or show right here. And we'll also use the animated fade in from our animated CSS. So if it's mobile nav, we will show and animate. And we'll build out our line items here. Let it know it's affiliated with the nav bar. Now this class name is going to determine on the active module whether if the item is active, the active module will equal whatever this module represents. And if it's not active, it just won't have the class active based on this ternary operator. So it says cart. If that's the active module, cart's link will be lit up, and log for the other one. Now let's write the link. And let's go ahead and write the function that determines what we're going to be doing. We'll pass the cart over if this has been clicked. And I'll just copy paste for the next one. Obviously we change this to log for transaction logs. There we go. Getting closer. The toggle is working. The nav bar is working. And here it is in mobile. Let's go ahead and double check on that mobile device. Okay, on click, We'll do the same function, not pass anything. There we go. Mobile works. We either have the cart or the transaction log. Let's use local storage to create persistence within our nav. I'm going to make a little bit of margin updates just utilizing Bootstrap. I need a little bit of space above our titles. That's fine. Okay. So within the useEffect function, I'm going to ask if there's a local storage for active module. And just like anything else, I only really want to run it once. So I'm going to have another hook called loaded. And if loaded is false, I'll run my function. And then once the function is run, I'll set loaded to true so it won't run again. I just don't want to get into an infinite loop or anything, so this is how I'm going to avoid that. So I'm checking for active module and local storage. If it's there, every time I refresh, whatever a module was active last time, like the cart will show up as active when I refresh. And hence we have persistence using local storage. See, I'm refreshing. Refresh. All right. Now I just need to pass the active module on our nav bar so that when it's active, it's verified and we can see it within our interface. You see how it needs to stay active upon click? I need to pass the active module itself to the nav so it knows what to determine what link should be active. Okay, here we go. Transaction lab, cart. You see the difference? And at the bottom in the console, you can see the toggle as well.